Hello everyone, I'm forecaster Jack Sillin here with the severe weather discussion for parts of the high plains on the afternoon of Thursday, May 10th, 2018. Looking at some storms developing across parts of the high plains here from western Nebraska down through Kansas and maybe even as far south as the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles. The disturbance responsible for these is now moving onshore in the San Francisco Bay Area. This will quickly move off to the east-northeast through the day today, crossing the Rocky Mountains and arriving in the Colorado area by this afternoon. As that disturbance approaches the Colorado area, we're going to be looking for upward motion to develop out ahead of it, as we would expect out ahead of upper level disturbances, looking for that general rising motion, and that's going to set the stage for a generally favorable environment for severe thunderstorm activity. Again, anywhere from parts of Nebraska here down into parts of Kansas, and again, even as far south as parts of the Oklahoma and Texas panhandles, although I will discuss what's limiting the severe weather potential down in this area in a couple minutes. Looking at the surface, we have a frontal boundary draped across parts of Kansas this morning. We can see southerly winds, southeasterly winds out ahead of that, or to the south of that boundary, and northeasterly winds out in front of that, or to the north of that boundary. And that boundary will shift a little bit to the north today, so that it's located not in parts of northern Kansas, but rather in parts of central Nebraska. And this will allow for some instability to develop along into the south of that front. And that will be fueling severe thunderstorm activity later on, again, as that disturbance moves closer to the area tonight. Here's a look at our ECMWF's thunderstorm composite map showing here's our instability again to the south of that boundary, which will stretch roughly from Omaha, just north of Grand Island, just north of North Platte, over towards Scottsburg. So this is the general vicinity of the boundary here. Plenty of instability located to the south of that, of Cape values, convective available potential energy. Those values in excess of 1,000 joules per kilogram. That's more than enough to support active thunderstorms. And then looking at some of our wind fields, we have a classic signature of turning winds with height. So we have those southeasterly winds at the surface, southerly winds in the mid-levels, and then westerly winds farther up into the atmosphere. So we'll have plenty of rotational energy to watch for some scattered tornadoes, but at the very least, plenty of rotational energy to support the rotating updrafts you need to get other types of severe weather, such as large hail and damaging winds. If we look at our simulated radar map, again, don't take these as a particularly precise forecast for exactly where and when thunderstorm cells will track, but it does give a good general overview of what to expect throughout the day. So rounds of rain moving across the area to the north of that front, and then along the front and to the south of it, we're going to look for this thunderstorm activity to develop later on in the evening. So this is 10 o'clock at night Eastern time, so that's 9 o'clock Central. And this is when we're going to see some of those thunderstorms develop. Plenty of instability still, but again, we have to wait for that disturbance to trek all the way from San Francisco through the Rocky Mountains towards Colorado before we can get that upward motion needed to spark the thunderstorm activity. Notice that these thunderstorms are oriented in a linear structure for most of the area here. We could see some discrete cells try to form along the southern periphery of that system, but again, mostly a linear structure, so that will favor primarily a damaging wind threat. Although, again, watch some of these southern cells, see if they can get discrete and potentially produce a tornado or two, given some of that rotational energy we discussed earlier. Farther to the south, here are dew point observations this morning across New Mexico and Texas into Colorado. We can see that we have a dry line. So dew points in Roswell, New Mexico, 49 degrees at the 6 a.m. Central this morning. Just a few miles to the west here, 10-degree dew points. So plenty of a contrast in the moisture fields here. That dry line will mix off to the east as it does when the sun comes up, and so by this afternoon it'll be located in parts of Texas, and that dry line will potentially provide a little bit of focus for thunderstorm activity, although here is the limiting factor. This is the temperature forecast for about 10,000 feet, so 700 millibars. And you can see very warm temperatures expected across the Texas Panhandle in excess of 15 degrees Celsius. And now, why is that important for thunderstorm activity? Well, what you need for thunderstorm activity to fuel, as kind of the fuel for those thunderstorms, is a vertical temperature gradient. So the faster that temperatures can cool off as you head up into the atmosphere, the more energy you're going to have to fuel those thunderstorms. Now, we always are going to have warm temperatures at the surface, so highs in this area in the 80s and 90s today. So that gradient is kind of modulated by how cold or not cold the temperature is in the mid and upper levels. So if you're always going to have warm temperatures at the surface. If you have also warm temperatures aloft, you're not going to get that contrast that you need to fuel thunderstorms. And that's kind of the concern that we're going to have today. So a strong cap here is what it's known as, kind of puts a lid, if you will, on those thunderstorms. We'll see if the dry line, the rising motion along the dry line, can break the cap. If it does, we look for some thunderstorms to develop in this area, but that cap, those warm mid-level temperatures, definitely helping to mitigate the severe threat this evening in that area. Here's a look at our simulated radar imagery. Again, this model is predicting the cap will hold strong, and so no severe thunderstorms developing in this area. But if we look at our ECMWF thunderstorm composite map, we'll see that if thunderstorms are able to develop, if we can get that cap to break, there is a favorable environment here for severe thunderstorms. So again, southerly winds at the surface here, those black arrows, southerly winds also in the lower to mid levels, and then as you head up into the mid and upper levels, we're looking at the westerly winds here. So you get that rotational energy, you can support rotating updrafts, look for large hail, damaging winds, and even the threat for a tornado, although the tornadoes are less likely in this area, again, due to that cap. We're watching to see if that cap will be able to break or not break. The other reason that tornadoes aren't expected in this area is that the air is very dry in the low to mid levels. So if we scroll through our parameter menu over here, we can select the relative humidity at about 2,500 feet. And you can see relative humidity values 20%, 10%, 30%. So what this means is that the cloud bases are going to be very high today. And when you get those very high cloud bases, the tornado threat is greatly reduced. So likely not worried about tornadoes in here. But if you get some of those storms to break the cap, they'll get rotating updrafts. Talked about that rotational energy earlier. And you could see some large hail and damaging winds. Storms will die off. If they form down here, they will die off quickly as they move off to the east, away from that dry line. And not expecting too much in the way of severe weather activity overnight tonight down in this area. Track the storms with all the tools that we have here at WEATHER.US. HD radar, lightning analysis, GO16 satellite imagery, we'll have it all here. I have tutorial videos explaining how to use each of these, so if you're curious, you can find those at blog.weather.us under the tutorial videos section. And if you have any lingering questions, feel free to send them my way. I'll try to get a few more updates out this afternoon and into this evening as the storms develop. That's it from me for now. Thanks for watching and have a great day.